Hello, everyone. My name is Vaida, and I am education lead at MetricsDAO. We will begin the webinar on DAOs in just a moment. So get comfortable, and we'll start soon. Okay, I see people are joining, so welcome everyone to today's webinar on DAOs. Really excited to have all of you here with us. Do say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're from, and let's begin. So, the idea of today's webinar is to give you an introduction on DAOs, why they are important, how do they operate, what are some of the challenges they're currently facing the DAO ecosystem, and how do they relate with data. So very excited to be bringing you this information today. But before we jump into the topic, we'll give you a short introduction of the organizer of this webinar, which is MetricsDAO. So MetricsDAO is essentially, first and foremost, a community of analysts that are focused on providing Web3 organizations with insights um, and tooling. So we have almost 5,000 people at the moment in our community with amazing analytics skills. And also we run a bunch of exciting analytics challenges. So one of the things that we do in our community is we are focused on upskilling um, so that the community members know how to do web analytics, web-free analytics specifically, very well. And we are also focused on different ecosystem courses. So they all are free. And if you're interested, you can join these courses by heading to our website, and I will be sharing some links later with you. But we do have some free courses already available, and we will be launching some new courses over the next weeks. You can already sign up to those courses. So if you're interested in learning more about these ecosystems or Web3 analytics, there's a lot of opportunities that we have available. Other than that, we're also working with various Web3 organizations that are kind of giving us various analytics challenges. So then our community is solving those challenges through various analytics kind of bounties that we have available. So you can also join and complete those challenges and get rewarded for it, and also put your skills and knowledge into practice. We also have amazing success stories of people who have gone through programs and successfully landed jobs and just ventured into the Web3 analytics space. So let us know as well in the chat. Yeah, what's your background? Are you already in the community? I see some familiar faces. So really happy to have you here with us, and welcome to all the new people that maybe have not interacted with us before. But that's enough about MetricsDAO. Let's jump into the topic of the day, which is DAOs. But even before that, I'd like to just look into the bigger picture of Web3, and then we're gonna look into how this relates with DAOs. So if we look into Web3 and how all the dApps are built, what is the philosophy that everything revolves around? It's really about building the new internet that it is kind of fueled by user ownership, fueled by peer-to-peer networks. So when we see the way the different DeFi applications are being built, how people are transferring coins to each other, it's all kind of based on peer-to-peer networks. Um, and When we look into the kind of the further kind of economical perspective of how it all works, it's we also see how it is shaping the future of work and how we are actually changing the way the value is currently created and how it's currently transferred. Um, and that's where DAOs coming as well. So DAOs as well embody these principles of peer-to-peer networks and user ownership and bring that into the organizational and coordinational layer where we are actually looking not only how decentralized applications can function on technological level in a centralized way, but also how can human beings coordinate and work together powered by these networks. And DAOs essentially stand for decentralized autonomous organizations. So what does that mean, and what are these different kind of words really mean? So first, DAOs are decentralized, so meaning that the DAO is owned by the collective and it's governed by the collective instead of one person or the CEO of the company making all the decisions. Then the other part is that it is autonomous, meaning that there are smart contracts put into place that allow the DAO to make the decisions um, and facilitate processes automatically based on these rules encoded in the smart contract. And the last part is that it is an organization, meaning that there are certain governance structures that power DAOs that actually ensure that people can coordinate and work together towards a common vision. However, I do want to highlight that a lot of the DAOs don't start, well, practically all of the DAOs don't start immediately being decentralized and autonomous, that there is generally, a core team first that starts, and then a DAO kind of along the path kind of gains more and more of these qualities, but a lot of the times not achieving that full decentralization and autonomy. We can also see DAOs as just a group of people who kind of come together, bounded by kind of smart contracts or by constitution to just make stuff happen. And when we actually compare this traditional organizations with DAOs, there are some significant differences there. And one of the huge differences is like their organizational structure and the fact that they are flat and that they are open. So it is kind of much more open to join. There's some DAOs will have some gating mechanisms that we'll be looking in a bit later, but mostly they are incredible, very, very, very more open than traditional organizations to join and contribute. Then we have a lot of transparency when it comes to seeing the data of how the organization is operating, and they are also working on a centralized manner supported by the rules encoded in the smart contracts. But overall, what DAOs are focused on, what are some of the key innovations that they are bringing, is that they are creating these structures and processes to enable decentralized human coordination. They're creating these new systems that are trustless and transparent, and also instead of like traditional organizations focusing from like the CEO to kind of making all the decisions, DAOs are actually building community up. So what makes them so different, other than these factors that we mentioned? So there are some other interesting things that make DAOs what they are. So first, they are global, meaning that a lot of times you will notice that people joining the DAOs actually, coming from different countries and different backgrounds, and the times, it doesn't really matter where you are from to be able to join the DAO, which is quite different from how it is in traditional organizations. So that opens kind of more opportunities for organizations to be operating together with people from different countries, and for kind of certain nationalities that maybe would struggle to find a job in their own country to actually, to get more opportunities globally. Then the transparency part, it's also really powerful when it comes to seeing the transactions and seeing how the organization operates, enabling more accountability. Then they are quite fluid, which means that have a lot of flexibility, and they're constantly adapting and changing based on the needs of the community. Then there is a lot of grassroots innovation happening, since it is led and governed by the community. And lastly, kind of very censorship proof. So when was the first time DAO started, and when was this concept actually created? So it actually originated in the early days of blockchain technology, and Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, was the first one who kind of proposed this concept back in 2013, so 10 years ago, in the Ethereum's white paper. And then we saw in 2016 this thing called the DAO founded, which actually didn't have a very successful story, and it was actually made kind of as a democratic proof to vote on Ethereum's network changes and proposals. However, this DAO was hacked, and a lot of the funds were stolen. And then we didn't really see much of the DAO activity happening for quite a few years. But if you want to kind of look more into the hack and how it all worked out and how it links with some of the things that evolved Ethereum, you can just do some research yourself afterwards. But now let's look into what makes a DAO a DAO. There are certain key pieces that generally every DAO tends to have, and one of them is a wallet. So generally there would be various governors that would have access to this multi-sig wallet that is controlled on chain, and then multiple signatures are needed in order to issue any sort of kind of funds from that wallet. So that kind of ensures more security, as there can't just be one person making decision of where the funds are going to go, or just having a control of the funds. Multiple people need to sign in order for the money to be released, and generally Gnosis chain is the main tool that is used for this purpose. Then there is generally some form of a governance system, and here a native token by DAO is generally what is key here. And we'll be looking into the governance processes a little bit later today. Then there is generally some form of an execution layer, and it's generally embedded by on-chain rules executed by smart contracts. So that's where the smart contracts come in. And then there is some form of a communication and coordination process, because people still need a space to speak and work together and brainstorm ideas. So we have various tools, Discord being used mainly for kind of the community management. And then we have this course, which actually is generally used for making proposals on the changes to be made in the DAO. Right. So essentially, in DAOs, the the voting, which tokens is key, is at the core. And generally, the voting will happen by the token holders of it, and the token is the DAO's token. And a lot of the times it will depend on, like, the power of the voting will depend on how many tokens you actually hold. And there is different kind of ways on how can these governance systems be created, or how, and there are certain kind of some issues in many DAOs when it comes to tokens that we're going to be looking into in a moment. But but if you just look into first the definition of what tokens even are, so these are essentially digital assets, and they can be used to incentivize and reward participants for their contributions into the DAO other than voting. So it's not just about voting. There's so many different other ways on why tokens are important, but voting obviously is a critical part here. And different DAOs as well will be using tokens in a different way, but incentivizing people to be sticking with the DAO, to kind of having some ownership there, is really driven by the tokens. And then these voting mechanisms that DAOs are implementing are essentially determining, where a DAO is going to be heading. And there's different levels generally that DAOs kind of create for the governance system, and each DAO will have its own way, but generally it will start with some form of an online discussion, which will a lot of the times will be in Discord. Then there is going to be some form of proposal, which generally is going to happen on Discord. So then there's going to be a person who actually writes the proposal, and then there's a comment section with people commenting on the proposal, and kind of maybe suggesting some added ideas. And then there's generally going to be some form of a voting that is maybe first then off-chain and then on-chain. And like, you actually can see the discourse and snapshot of the different DAOs yourself. So because it is publicly available, if you're interested in seeing the proposals and what's happening, you can just go to essentially the DAO's documentation or just discourse, and just try to kind of find these proposals and see how they're actually working, and how these votings are happening, and what sort of things are DAOs talking about. But essentially, like, the key here when it comes to the data part is that in DAO, since you do have all these proposals available to see, since you do see the communication happening in the Discord server, since you do see the way the value and the tokens are flowing, that opens up, a lot of opportunities for someone who is not part even of the organization to be able to see a lot of data that would not be available otherwise. And when you look into how much data is available in traditional organizations and how much data is available in DAOs, the difference is just huge. And some DAOs will not be as open when it comes to being able to view their Discord, their communication on Discord. Sometimes you would have to hold their NFT or hold their certain status. So it also like sometimes you do need to have certain access rights in order to view all that kind of information that's flowing through the DAO. But for example, at MetricsDAO, like you can see a lot of the discussion, and we are focusing on building in public. So one of the most popular ways for voting to happen and for the proposal to pass is called quorum voting. So this is just one of the examples of the voting mechanisms that I mentioned. There's different ones, but this is one example. And here, for the proposal to actually pass, the idea here is that X% of people need to be present in the quorum, and then there is a percentage set that X percentage of them need to actually vote yes for the proposal to pass. So essentially, these proposals can go on so many different things. They can be about development, marketing, grants, I know some of the kind of outside tooling, etc. So there's a lot of different ways on how these proposals can be executed. But it's not so ideal, and we're still in the DAO space figuring out a lot of things on how to make the governments better. And there's definitely a lot of challenges that DAOs are facing at this point. So first, it can be quite consuming to encourage members to participate, and sometimes, especially since we're going to quorum voting, you do need to have an X amount of people participating. It sometimes can be hard to ensure that people are active, and sometimes DAOs are struggling with people just not being active in voting and submitting the proposals. Another big part is that they sometimes even have not enough context to make those decisions. So if, let's say, a DAO is voting, is open, kind of the voting on a proposal is open to anyone who holds the tokens, and maybe some of these token holders are not actually actively engaged in DAO, don't really understand what's happening. Or maybe the proposal is very technical. However, people who don't have any technical expertise are voting. It can cause as well as some issues with people not actually being able to have enough information in order to make a good decision. So that can be a huge problem a lot of times. Essentially, also there can be certain issues with people kind of maybe not having good intentions in mind, and kind of more focusing on the economic interests instead of the betterment of the DAO and the vision of the DAO. So there definitely are a lot of challenges that now still are working around and considering. But one of the things that I mentioned earlier to you is that DAOs actually don't start being very decentralized. Generally, there is a core team, and that's starting the whole DAO. And because otherwise, if you start immediately being, with complete decentralization and reporting hundreds of contributors and community members to make decisions without having proper structures in place, that can fundamentally lead into chaos. So what DAOs are generally doing is they are first creating these structures and testing things with a kind of the initial members before they actually kind of roll out the DAO into the wider community. And once this DAO is rolled out, and once it's getting bigger, then a lot of the times there are different pods created, or squads. Different DAOs might have different names for it, but essentially there will be like a growth pod, a business development pod, a marketing pod, etc. So like DAOs will actually still have like this kind of like a structure which might resemble departments. However, inside of those departments, everything is kind of happening in a more decentralized way to which you normally see in traditional organizations. Right. So, what are then these DAOs that are at the moment the most popular ones? If you want to actually see that data, you can go to deepdao.io website. This is where I got the data from as well. And we can see that a lot of the most popular DAOs are actually focusing on kind of protocol development, like Polkadot, or they're focusing on decentralized finance, like Uniswap or Lido. So we can see that Uniswap is by far the biggest DAO with over 350,000 governance token holders. And you can also see here the tokens that our DAO is holding. And generally, you see the chain of the DAO, and most of the DAOs will be built on Ethereum. And the biggest DAOs are built on Ethereum, and then they also have various different tokens in their treasury. So lots of times DAOs will have kind of USDC, as USDC it's quite a stable token, so it's kind of adds some security when it comes to different fluctuations, but they also will have kind of their own token and maybe a few other tokens in their treasury to diversify and to ensure that it's secure. Right, so now we're going to be looking into the different examples of the DAOs out there and what are some of the use cases that we currently see. So first we have things like Shapeshift. So now we see a lot of centralized organizations in the Web3 space decentralizing and actually becoming DAOs. And more organizations are talking about it. And as well, like Shapeshift is one of the kind of the primary examples, and one of the first organizations that has made that happen. And yes, Shapeshift is a DeFi protocol. And then one of the biggest ones, one of the biggest DAOs out there, and one of the first DAOs out there is called MakerDAO. So they are kind of focusing on governing the stablecoin DAI. Then we also have Developer DAO, and Developer DAO essentially connects developers, and they kind of work on projects together. I love public goods projects, and it's a very active community, and just everyone that I met in the Developer DAO has been really enjoying their experience and found it really helpful to have that community of other people that are learning blockchain development and actually building in a space. Then we have another DAO called Bankless, and Bankless essentially is producing a lot of different kinds of content, media and educational content to involve more people into the space and to the specifically DeFi world. Then we have MetaCartel DAO. So MetaCartel actually provides grants to early Web3 product teams and supports projects being built. And in order to join a DAO, actually do need to have quite a lot of ETH. It's very expensive to join. That has a huge entry barrier. I think it's like 10 ETH or something to join a DAO. So some DAOs, including MetaCartel, have a really incredibly high barrier, and they actually are focusing on having less community members per se, but only having very engaged community members. Then we also have this interesting DAO called Meta Factory, which essentially is a marketplace where they essentially are creating their own brands, and these brands are like different kinds of digital physical apparel, so including kind of the metaverse apparel. Then we have a cabin DAO, and cabin DAO is essentially focusing on building decentralized creator communities, and they are actually building a lot of in real life in the moment cabins and retreats, and just kind of trying to bring the community in real life, and through kind of building those cabins and through building these decentralized cabin network. So here is kind of a good example of mixing the IRL, so in real life experience, with the decentralized community. And so similar to kind of the other one, which is called the Dream Factory, where they actually kind of created this co-living space in Portugal, and where they are essentially there kind of governing their community and real life community as well, using tokens, and there are people getting rewards, let's say, with their tokens for organizing events in the community, and as well, like through those tokens people can invest in that community. Now we have some kind of social DAOs and kind of DAOs specifically looking into onboarding kind of more diverse into the space, like her DAO. And also we have a climate DAO, which essentially is focusing on specifically how can we kind of tokenize carbon and create more regenerative systems in our planet. Right. But these are just a few examples. We have so many different DAOs out there that you can take a look at. So we have also like a bunch of different collector DAOs, where maybe members are coming together to buy expensive NFTs. We have like a bunch of different examples of social DAOs, service DAOs, where maybe that connect people that have specific skill set with organizations that need that skill set. So we have a lot of different examples, and we have thousands of DAOs. So even though we're still really early in the DAO space, we have had over the past couple of years, especially a lot of really interesting DAO examples coming out. Right. So we already looked into some of the tooling that is out there in the DAO space. So kind of Snapshot being the key one for voting on proposals. This group being the key one for community and communication. Discourse for forum, and DAOs still need some project management processes in place in order to coordinate effectively and to ensure that things actually get done. And for this purpose, many DAOs will be are using some of the specific Web3 project management tooling like Wonderverse or Dework. Right. So what are then the pros of DAOs, and what sort of things are they bringing into the economy and our world? So first, the huge focus on having processes and structures for ownership of the community members, and them kind of feeling like they have skin in the game early on, making them more kind of active community members, and ensuring that the organization is built with the community in mind, with their voice in mind, instead of kind of them only being there as users. They are there as well as someone as shapers of how this organization is evolving. Then transparency is a huge part, and that also can help the DAO to ensure that transparency is out there, and then we can actually see what's happening in the organization, so it's all on chain, and it kind of adds some form of an accountability for those organizations to be acting in the best interest. Then since contributors and community members are generally getting some form of the DAO token, and then this token can actually increase in value and actually have some potential upside in the future. And yeah, and then essentially there are a lot of other benefits, but these are just a few. And if you have some other ideas, I would love to hear them in the comments. However, DAOs are not so ideal, and there are certain challenges that are involved in this space. One of them being the regulatory landscape. So at the moment, we see that the regulatory landscape is still a very gray area, and even though there have been certain ways to kind of incorporate a DAO in certain places like Wyoming in the US or Switzerland, so a few countries have already kind of adapted certain mechanisms. However, these are just a few countries, and still largely it is very unclear on how the regulatory landscape is going to evolve, and many DAOs actually still have not even incorporated because of those challenges. And sometimes because they just don't want to be associated with the government, which can open new challenges by itself. Then also some DAOs actually just struggle with the decision making due to voter epiphany and them not, voting on the decisions or having, slow processes in, discussion. Then a lot of times, as I was mentioned before, the voters will not have enough context to actually make a good decision. As they maybe have not been engaged with the DAO full time. And another thing is the onboarding and the processes and the co-work environment, and a lot of the times can appear quite chaotic. And all the time DAOs don't really have good project management systems in place, and just really struggle to get things done, and things get all over the place. People don't know who's accountable for what, or because a lot of the contributors might be working all full part-time, like 5 or 10 hours per week. All the times, as this is not your primary activity, if the first job gets into place and they have maybe more work there, then they're just not maybe going to do the work. And and sometimes the contributors are not getting paid at all, and that a lot of the times as well, it makes it really difficult to engage them and to ensure that actually they do get stuff done, and they are committed, and that they are not, and that there is a high retention there. Because there's a lot of times that many people raise their hands and they want to do things, but when it actually comes to getting these things done, it can sometimes be problematic. Yeah, but saying that, if you still want to join a DAO, if you're still very interested in this field and you would like to explore for yourself, which is the best way to learn about DAOs, is by joining one, and is by exploring and seeing how they work. So different DAOs will have different ways for you to join, different mechanisms as of how they onboard their contributors or their community members. So you really just have to look, case by case. But the reason why to even join a DAO is, first, it's a great way for you to build your network in the Web3 space, because you are essentially joining a community of like-minded people. And through completing the different projects in the DAO space, you can build your portfolio, and that can be a good kind of opportunity for you to professionally venture into the Web3 space through the experience that you build in the house and for the network that you build in the house as well. Then one of the big things that it kind of has when it comes to the working environment is that if you do want more autonomy, flexibility, and ownership in your tasks, then DAOs is the way to go. This is not for everyone, because you do need to be self-directed, and it requires certain skills that maybe weren't really important in the traditional organizations. But if this is something that you feel like works better for you, this working environment, then DAOs as well can be interesting to explore. And as well, it's a great learning experience. There's a lot of kind of high energy there of like people coming together to work on what they're passionate about and in really creating things that have not been created before and has a lot of innovative energy. And if you do want to feel like you are in that front of innovation, that if you want to be creating things that have not been created before, the DAOs as well can be a very interesting avenue to do that. Right, so how do you join a DAO? Sometimes you can just join a Discord server and you're in. Sometimes it's not so easy. So there are different kinds of ways. So some DAOs might require you to hold a certain amount of DAO tokens, like Bankless DAO, for example, or they might require you to buy an NFT in order to join their server and get access to community. Sometimes you would first need to complete certain tasks before kind of you can reach the like a certain level where you can actually then get more access to different channels in Discord or the different opportunities available in the DAO. So every DAO will have its own way. And yeah, so how do you even pick then which one? Because there are thousands. So how to actually know which one to go for if you are interested in joining one? So first you can just have a look into their mission, what they're working towards, what are they trying to create, what you're trying to innovate upon. Then you can look into what sort of thing you personally are interested in learning, what sorts of like potential areas. If you're really interested in centralized finance, that maybe a DeFi DAO would be a good choice. If you're interested in investing, then an investment DAO. If you're interested, let's say, in analytics, then MetricsDAO. So it depends really what you're interested in, and as well like what sort of skills you want to involve, and is that DAO that you want to join will give you the opportunities to evolve these specific skills, and depending on what's the purpose and the focus on the DAO. There might be like a need for one skill more than the other. For example, for developer DAO, they are very much focusing on developers. So they're like the skill set of being a developer will be the most kind of useful. Then who do you want to connect with? Because different DAOs will attract different people. So as well being like aware of what kind of people you want to network with. Then, what would be the different opportunities for you to actually um, get rewarded? Because some DAOs will actually not reward you with, USDC or the tokens that have, already have value yet, and you're just kind of, working based on a on a hope or an opportunity that they will be rewarding you later, or sometimes they will be rewarding you immediately. So as well, do have a look into different mechanisms that they have in place to reward. And then access, so like what do you need in order to join the DAO, and how is that DAO actually gated. Mhm. Right. So there's different ways when you contribute to a DAO. So some well-funded DAOs will have full-time roles and a bunch of full-time contributors. Sometimes DAOs will have like a bounty board that you can complete, and you can just like look into it and see what tasks are open or available. Sometimes you will need to hold a certain amount of tokens in order to be able to access these bounties. Then there's also a proposal. Uh, Process all the times. If you would like to kind of contribute, you would have to submit a proposal on Discourse with your idea. And some DAOs will have like their grants systems, where you can where they actually have grants available for specific kind of ideas. Right. So the journey into becoming a contributor a lot of times will be quite confusing. So generally what I would suggest is to join the Discord server and see if there's any documentation that is on the DAO's website, that you can read through to better understand what's happening in the DAO. Some DAOs will be very well documented, some DAOs will not. and then see what community calls they have, because of the times DAOs will have community calls where they actually just give updates, but also give you a chance to introduce yourself. So do kind of attend those community calls to get to know who's in the community and to connect with the community and the key operators of the DAO. Also introduce yourself and to say why you are in the DAO, if you need any help, if you want to contribute in any way that can help you to get noticed in front of the core contributors. And also then see like what are some of the projects that are going on at the moment in the DAO, and raise your hand if you do want to get involved in any of them. But yeah, DAOs overall, very look into them and how they operate in comparison to how the traditional world operates. They can seem a lot of the times quite crazy in many ways, from the vibes to the way to contribute. So they are really bringing some new systems in place, and they are very exciting spaces to get involved. Right, so what's next? So we are now kind of finished with the DAO part, but there's a few more things that I wanted to tell you about. So first, I will share a form with you right now in the chat, which is essentially just a couple minutes, a survey that will take you a couple of minutes to complete, just to give us a little bit of feedback on how you think this webinar went, and if you see any improvements that could be made so that we can make these webinars as good as possible. So that's the first link I shared. And the other thing is the course, because we will be having a DAO course that you will be able to check out and learn more about DAOs. So also I'd really encourage you to join our community on Discord server if you have not already, because first, we are a DAO, so you can also see how we are working and get involved in the community as well. And other than that, we also have a bunch of exciting courses already available or coming available soon. So both different ecosystem courses as well as Web Analytics 101 Live and the same programs that you can go through. And then we also have a bunch of different analytics challenges available. So if you do have already Web analytics skills, you can go and complete those analytics challenges, get some practice, build some dashboards, and essentially get rewarded. And also we do have a DAO chat in the Discord server, so you can also just ask any questions there if you have any questions about DAOs in general, and we would really happily answer these questions ourselves. Yeah. And if you haven't joined the Discord server, actually for signing up for the course, you will get a special badge, which actually allow you, give you access to certain channels like the DAO chat, and this chat is generally not available if you don't have the badge. So just making you aware that if you do sign up to the course, it will take us a few days to send you the badge, because we do it manually. And once that badge is sent, you will basically have to go to start your journey at the very top of our Discord server and then connect to the guild pod. So that would be the way for you to actually kind of, really get access and join our community and all the different channels. Right. So again, I did share the couple of links with you in the chat. So the first link to fill in the survey form, so that we can improve and make things better for you guys. And then the second one is the course link. So if you want to sign up to the course, yeah, go for it. Right. So before we finish for today, do we have any questions? Feel free to drop them in the chat. And thanks, Paul, for saying that the course is fantastic. Really appreciate it. Okay. If there is no more questions, then I will be saying bye to everyone here. Thank you all for joining. It's been great having you here. Really appreciate your interest and listening to this webinar. I really hope you learned something new about DAOs and it was helpful. We will be hosting some more webinars, so do keep updated with what's happening in our Twitter and Discord. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining today and have a good day or evening ahead. Bye-bye.